People, deluded, I'm back again. Now, obviously, it was a tough season for Arsenal, you know. Domestically, we finished 8th. Europa League, having disgraced ourselves in the finals against the very team that we beat, obviously, in the FA Cup. You know, we lost 4-1 last year in the Europa League. We didn't get anywhere near close to the final this year, and, you know, I don't believe in this coulda, woulda, shoulda, but you know, and again, it's a massive if to assume Arsenal would win 2 cups. But imagine, considering how poor our season was, and again, ifs don't win stuff. If we remained in the Europa League to go with this FA Cup, could we have, you know, if we won the Europa League, it would be a decent year, or sort of not decent, but we would have been saved. Or, you know, momentum. Since the restart, excluding the Man City game, we've been okay. You know, since we boxed Liverpool and City, I don't want to say we've taken it up a level, and yes, Liverpool, the game was you know, there's fortune with Alisson and Van Dijk, but at the end of the day, we put in a shift. City beat them off the park. Chelsea beat them off the park. So what could this momentum have done for us going into that, people? But we can't deal with the ifs and buts. That's where that conversation gets left. You know, we didn't do too good in the Europa League. We were appalling in the league. We're 8th. You know, that a club like us shouldn't be 8th, but that's where we are now. FA Cup, it is a decent thing for us, you know, and I'm happy to win a cup, you know. There's a case to be said. Obviously, let's be serious. If Arsenal didn't win the FA Cup and got top 4, like how this year we was out of the top 4, but we managed to we finished 8th, but we grabbed an FA Cup. People would be saying that obviously that, you know, just simply getting top 4 is more successful, and I don't agree, but I don't necessarily disagree. Obviously, Wenger was killed for it. Top 4 is essentially a trophy. The financial rewards, definitely what Arsenal could do. You know, getting into the Champions League could really allow us more flexibility in the market and all of these sort of things. Obviously, that being said, players are not in the game to be top 4 or finish 4th. You're in it for trophies. I know if I finish playing football, you know, I'm not going to necessarily be telling my grandkids, oh, Arsenal are 8th and we, you know, this and that, is accomplishment to get 4th. There's no trophies for that, you know. FA Cup, you get a medal, you get it. So it's been a mad season, and with it all being done from an Arsenal perspective, you know, I just thought I don't even know the purpose of this vid, but just a couple thoughts, you know, in terms of games of the season, like games I thought were good games, you know. I really enjoyed beating Manchester United at the Emirates. I think West Ham, when we beat them 3-1, purely because we couldn't buy a win, and I think we were decent in that game. Obviously, Chelsea and Man City in the FA Cup respectively, that's always going to be up there with the highlights. I mentioned Liverpool. Liverpool's got to be up there as well. There's a couple of moments, you know, when who did we beat 4-0? Newcastle or Everton, one of them 4-0, I could be wrong. In fact, Everton was 3-2. It wasn't the perfect game. I'd say I enjoyed the Newcastle 4-0, I believe that was. What was it? Did we beat Villa 3-2? Like, we beat Villa 3-2, I could be wrong. I think, if I remember rightly, Saka, we booed at the Emirates because Saka was playing amazing and was taken off. I think Pepe did his bit to turn that game around. I felt that game was full of all of emotions. You know, obviously I enjoyed beating Chelsea, and to draw at Stamford Bridge, I did think it was a decent game within the context. So yeah, there has been some highs, but in terms of, you know, poor games, would be here all day. I think Villa, you know, Villa's got to be up there. Losing 1-0 to Villa, I'd say both times against Leicester, well, drawing against Leicester because we failed to manage the game. It's just very frustrating. Obviously, when we lost to them at their place, forgive me if I'm wrong, it was, you know, it wasn't a nice feeling at all. Losing 1-0 to Sheffield United, you know, no disrespect to Sheffield, they deserved it, but I think it showed what belief can do, and it just really annoyed me how we were overawed. The fans beat us, not the players necessarily. Spurs, it's never nice to lose to Spurs. Obviously, I've got to throw that in there. Brighton, you know, dropped 6 points to Brighton, forgive me if I'm wrong. In both matters have been quite disgraceful and have been collapses from a goal in front. I could be wrong on the Emirates one. Drawing with Palace at the Emirates was frustrating, and I'm pretty sure that's the time where, you know, Xhaka was doing that. That's always, I have to include that, you know, Xhaka or the fans didn't cover themselves with any glory. We put it to bed and we've won an FA Cup. But, you know, you can't not say, you know, if we're talking about the whole season, that was a low point for me anyways as an Arsenal fan, because you don't want to see that from your players, you don't want to see that from the fans. We're all fighting for this badge. Lovely that it ended nicely though. What else have we got? Losing to Man City 3-0. Well, both times we've lost against City, but losing we lost 3-0 at the Etihad purely because, listen, City are a great side, but we shot ourselves in the foot in that game. There's been a couple of poor games. You know, Norwich drawing as well was very frustrating for me personally. Same goes for Southampton. Like mainly that period between playing just before West Ham and when we dropped points against Palace, there was a period where we really couldn't buy a win. I think it was 6 games or so. And on the grand scheme of things, people might be saying you're exaggerating, but I think we were poor in that regards, people. There's many more games. In terms of like player of the year, player of the season, for me, it's got to be Aubameyang. Like, it's got to be Aubameyang. Like, by quite a distance, you know. He's got 29 goals, 22 in the league. You know, he's had suspensions and whatnot. He keeps himself fit. He's done his job, you know, in terms of what I'm expect of someone in August and what I want to see in May. You know, he's done his job. 20 league goals, you know. He's done his bit, minimum 20 league goals. You know, obviously his suspension, I'm pretty sure, you know, in hindsight, if he didn't get suspended against Palace for that tackle, he might have got the golden boot. Again, ifs and buts don't win stuff. We can only deal with the facts. But it's got to be Aubameyang. If it's not Aubameyang, for me personally, it's Bukayo Saka. I know he was kind of taking out the team towards the end of the season, but I think he deserves it. Obviously, Leno's almost a forgotten man, but I think Leno deserves his plaudits. I do think there has been other good players. I feel Joe Willock's not... Man said Joe Willock. Granit Xhaka since the restart has been good. Ceballos since the turn of the year has been good. Tierney's done his thing when fit. You know, Martinez as well as Leno has been doing his thing. There, you know, there's been other players as well doing what they need to do. But I think, you know, they're the only 3 names really that have been stand out for me 9 times out of 10 all season. Aubameyang's been scoring goals. You know, most longest drought I saw was after the restart. He had 2 or 3 games he didn't score. Saka, you know, we shouldn't have been relying on him the way we was relying on him for that young man. And, you know, he's now the number 7. I think he's actually got the 2nd most shirts sold so far after Tierney. So it shows how much his stature has risen. And Leno, you know, for all Leno's faults, because I don't think Leno is perfect, stood up to be counted. And there was numerous games, you know, Leno was making enough saves, deserved the clean sheet, but we're walking away with some mad result. And it wasn't fair on Leno. So I'd say them. Player of the year for me goes to Aubameyang. Young player of the year obviously will go to Saka by quite a distance. You know, I would say so I'd say player of the year goes to Aubameyang for me. Young player of the year goes to Saka. Surprise package of the season for me goes to Martinelli. He really should. He could have a case to say, maybe not necessarily player's player, but he could be up there with the rankings. He should have really been given young players. Just I think Saka's done it. Obviously the season's not ended well for Martinelli. Obviously he gets his FA Cup medal, but it's, you know, he's not going to play until 2021. He's out for the rest of the year with an injury and having an operation. But you know, we knew he had potential. We heard when he was coming to the club initially, be playing 23s football and stuff. He had to be patient. You know, he was very much, you know, one young player on the cusp of the first team, and now you're looking at it. You want him to start week in, week out if possible for Arteta. You know, we didn't expect that. You know, he's only got 3 or so Premier League goals. I could be wrong. The bulk of it came in the Europa League. But he's put, you know, one of the highlights of the season. Goals of the season probably for another vid. And I won't say it's the goal of the season. But Martinelli's dribble through the middle of the park to obviously score at the bridge. Along with, I believe, Aubameyang's against Palace. And obviously... Lacazette's against Spurs for me. I think they're goals of the seasons, but he's played well, man. He's really played well, Martinelli. So for me, surprise package. One sec, people, because when I do the goals video, I want to remember what I've just said. So I said Aubameyang versus Palace, Laka against Spurs. Well, what other bangers have there been? Pepe's free kicks. Goal against City, goals versus City. There's been a couple goals of the season still. Martinelli's v Chelsea. How can I forget to write that down? Martinelli versus CFC. So yeah, man. So like I said, man. Surprise package of the season for me is Martinelli. I didn't have no information. You know, we also, unless you was watching a tunnel, which I wasn't, little information, and he's made a massive impact on me. In how he's played. So I'd say surprise package of the season goes to Martinelli. Young player for me is Saka. Player of the season for me is Aubameyang. Obviously, and let me add it as well, dark period is obviously seeing Emre lose his job. You never want to see a manager lose their job. You never want to go through what we've gone through, 3 managers in a year in some capacity. So I didn't say it, but you know, the whole Emre saga, throw that into low moments of the season. I know I said goals of the worst games of the season, but I'd say low points, you know, because I can't, you know, Xhaka, the Emre thing, obviously not being able to buy a win at a period when we before beating West Ham. These were all negative periods for us, losing to City. Do you get it, people? So like I said, and I keep reiterating, surprise package goes to Martinelli. Player of the season goes to Aubameyang for me. Young player goes to Saka. breakthrough star of the season, I'll give that to Eddie Nketiah somewhat. You know, it's almost like surprise package. But I think, you know, Saka and Martinelli are the ones you're looking at. But I think, you know, Eddie Nketiah, again, it remains to be seen as to whether he's good enough long term. But, you know, he didn't have the best of loan spells at Leeds. There were positives, there were negatives. Few people would have said, if you can't play for Leeds, how are you going to play for Arsenal at this period in their career, as a club, how they are this season? He's backed himself, he's played, and he's elevated his status. You know, he still needs to score more. His goals are lacking, his decision making isn't the best, but his work rate, you know, he's elevated his status. He was Lacazette, you know, he's got a positive reaction to a degree at Lacazette. Lacazette has had a poor season, but he ends it with 10 goals in the league, a respectable return of sorts, even though he should be getting more. On top of, you know, goals being like catch-up strikers going through moments, you know, to a bit of that has to be seeing him lose his spot to Eddie. So, you know, he's reacted well. And in the same way, Eddie's, you know, he's kept Lacazette off the bench. He's kept Lacazette on the bench. He's done his thing. So I think Eddie, you know, he's gone from being one of these young players, like how Martinelli was at a point on the cusp of the first team. Now he's firmly a squad option, rotational. He's elevated his status that much. And I think, obviously, when you've got Saka, you've got Martinelli, he's not going to get the praise. So I think breakthrough star is Eddie Nketiah, because he's shown that, you know, Arteta's starting him. You know, he'll get a 60 minutes or something, same as Lacazette also, because of the demands Arteta places on his strikers. He gives them a break. But we'll have to see what happens, man. Signing of the season is a tough one, people, and we'll get onto that. Flop of the season, Ozil, because he's barely played. It seemed like Arteta and him were going to have a new lease of life. It hasn't quite happened for him. You know, since the restart, he hasn't played. I don't know what's happened there, but he hasn't been involved. You know, Ozil has a lot of critics, but I do think he could have been involved more, but there's got to be a reason. Undoubtedly, you know, Ozil's got to be there. I don't think Ozil, I don't think Kolasinac has had the best of seasons. I think, you know, he's definitely had a period where he looked good in the defence, in the back three, but I would say that... yeah, man, I would say them two. I'd say Kolasinac, Ozil. I don't think Rob Holding he's had an injury, but I don't think he's looked too certified when he's played. Socrates hasn't had the best of seasons. He had periods where he was doing alright, but on the whole he hasn't. You know, as well, off topic, people, big up Mustafi as well. I wouldn't quite say surprise package of the season, and I wouldn't say player of the season, but he had a decent sort of bit of form. And stuff, and that ties me up to the next one, really. Underrated season. I feel Tierney underrated season. Injury shagged it, but I feel his performances, if it's not Arsenal fans, no one's banging on about it. Obviously, Arsenal fans might be banging on too much, but he's shown he's good 1v1. He's shown he can cross a ball. He's shown he's up for the big games. He's shown his mentality is different. You know, all it is with Tierney is a fitness thing, and for £25 million, it's a steal. Like, I'm not here to say Chilwell's not as good as him and all of these things, but Chilwell's, you know, you're hearing Leicester say it's going to take a record-breaking offer for Chelsea or whoever wants Chilwell, City as well, to buy him. We've got a decent left-back for £25 million, so deals are there to be had, you know. We've got Martinelli for peanuts, Tierney, which looks like peanuts, so we're doing our thing, man. So I'd say surprise package this season, or underrated season was what I meant to say. Tierney, because injuries have shagged it and not really allowed light to be shined upon him. I'd say Xhaka for his turnaround in his season and in his Arsenal career. Ceballos since the turn of the year. Well, I wouldn't say Ceballos is a surprise, because what he's doing now is what I wanted to see from him, really. So remove that. I actually feel Callum Chambers, before his injury, was in a bit of alright form. I think he's had an underrated season by that logic. Maybe Mustafi as well, because for me, if it was up to me, Mustafi would have left this club long time ago, and I still think he should leave. But, you know, he's done all he can to probably get away with staying here another year. He's out to October, but Mustafi's had a decent year. Well, in periods, he's made mistakes, obviously, but, you know, he's done all right. You know, so it is what it is. Looking at our signings of the season, I mean, just looking at our signings last season and quantifying them, Tierney, like I said, underrated left back. 25 million is still, you know, he's a terrific player. I really got a lot of time for Tierney. Similar to that, Martinelli shown he's a bad boy young player with all the potential in the world. We just need him to get back to full fitness and full health. Terrific signing. Pepe, you know, he's had some good and hot periods, and I've spoken about him at length, but I think he's shown he can be decent. I would say, if I had to say who's made the biggest impact, I'd probably say it's a toss-up between Martinelli and Tierney, because when Tierney's in the side, you see it. Martinelli in the sense of having low expectations and what he's doing. Pepe's doing okay. Ceballos grew since the turn of the year, and I kind of expected it from August, but he's there, so he's been alright. David Luiz has had his periods, but at this of playing very well, but at the same time, you know, conceded 5 penalties. And when you have a defense, when you have a system that isn't frail, that isn't solidified, you're always gonna see even more mistakes in error-prone players. You know, Chelsea, Luiz, it was still error-prone, but they had a better system, you know, especially defensively, so they can mask these things, or he's not in areas where it's been pulled out. And to be fair, there's been times, you know, David Luiz, you know, what was it? You know, when Kolasinac against Spurs, or you know, against Liverpool early on in the campaign, where he's pulled out wide. There's been times Mustafi at the bridge. There's been times David Luiz has made mistakes, but it's been as a consequence of another mistake. And who was it against as well? It could have even been against Watford as well. For David Luiz as well, for I think holding misplaced pass. So Arteta's got to pattern up these mistakes, because again, I do think sometimes it's not always Luiz's fault, it's a pattern of errors. But we probably would describe all our centre halves as fairly error prone. But Luiz has had good periods, you know, Mustafi and him. So I'd say, you know, Luiz has done alright, but he's shown that he's David Luiz, and he will let you down. And you know, you're not going to teach an old dog new tricks to a degree. I think it's been an iffy sign. I give Luiz a 5 out of 10. He's shown some good periods. He's shown some bookie periods. So yeah, our summer signings have done alright. Hopefully, I want to see better from Pepe next season. Of course, I want to see if Ceballos stays here. I want to see Ceballos add goals and assists. Obviously, want to see Luiz continue to be a leader and cut out those mistakes. Martinelli, there's expectation on you, so I just want you to continue developing and making a difference in your way. Tierney knows what to do. Tierney's certified. He's been at Celtic. He knows what to do. He knows what he needs to keep doing. So it is what it is. With that being said, there's nothing more for me to carry on with, people, so I'm going to get out of here. It's always a pleasure speaking with you guys, but it's time to bust out, man. People, DG, I'm out.